The wealthy woman finally found love again, but just 10 minutes ago, she actually played a young stud to death. To keep her reputation from being ruined, she asked a friend to contact a cleaner who specializes in dealing with bodies. As a knock of one long and two short sounds came from the door, cleaner George arrived at the rich woman's private room. Normally a scene like this gives him no pressure at all, but at that moment a stranger suddenly walked into the room.
Who are you?
I'm here to take care of your problem.
The rich woman looked confused. She did not know whether the man in front of her was friend or foe. Then Pete pointed to a 45-degree angle. There was actually a hidden pinhole camera on the hotel curtain. Then Pete told the rich woman to answer the phone. It turned out everything that happened in the room had been secretly filmed by the hotel owner. The man was worried that the death of the young stud would affect business, so he sent Pete to clean up the mess. But the rich woman had already called George to come earlier, so after the two talked it over, they decided to let two cleaners work together to deal with the body.
Hello?
No.
You have to know that the cleaner business is very special. For absolute safety and secrecy, clients always hire cleaners who work alone. Otherwise the client might kill them at any time to silence them. So George firmly refused the triple payment offered by the rich woman.
You're on those tapes too. Forget about me. If you don't finish the job, she's got you. A camera.
On the other side, Pete suffered the same threat. Even though the two men did not like each other, they could only agree to the employer's demand. Then both of them took out a set of clothes at the same time, and told the rich woman to disguise herself and leave the scene. To be fair, the rich woman took the jacket Pete prepared, and also took the pants George gave her. Wearing the strange combination of clothes, the rich woman left the hotel nervously. Then George spread plastic sheets on the floor, preparing to deal with the dead young stud. But at that moment he heard the sound of a soda can opening. It was Pete casually drinking a cola. George stepped forward and asked why you are not working, but Pete's answer left him speechless.
Well, that's irrelevant because my job is to make sure that you do your job so that that mess cannot be traced back to this hotel. Less difficult.
So you're just gonna sit there and slurp your soda?
I'm going to supervise.
Fuck you.
George could only keep working helplessly, but while Pete was enjoying himself, he suddenly saw a backpack behind the television. Pete opened it and was extremely disappointed.
Oh, shit.
George walked over after seeing that. The backpack not only contained a large amount of drugs, but there was also a locator inside a toy doll. This meant the drug dealers could find them at any time. The two men knew the trouble had just gotten bigger, but the urgent task was to deal with the young stud first. George placed 3 rows of tape on the ground. Then he rolled the body with force. The young stud was instantly wrapped up. Then he pushed over the hotel luggage cart and used his own weight to hang the young stud up, finally disguising him to look like a coat. They took the freight elevator to the underground parking lot. Pete skillfully cut the surveillance wires. When the security guard left to check the equipment, George smoothly placed the body into the trunk. He thought the young stud had been completely handled, but when the two discussed how to deal with the drugs, the trunk suddenly opened. The young stud was actually still alive.
Fuck. Shit. Fuck.
You okay? All good. Yep.
Pete complained that George did not check the body, but George remembered the first thing he did was check the pulse. So they went to Chinatown, planning to find a familiar doctor to handle it. After the female doctor examined him, it turned out the young stud had taken a high-purity drug, which caused intermittent suffocation. The two men were kicked out of the room by the doctor. They drank while discussing the female doctor's looks, but right at that moment,
Stop him!
youth really is something else. Even after being tortured like that by the rich woman, his body was still strong. But he underestimated 2 old cunning guys. As soon as the young stud ran out of the alley, he ran into George driving a car at high speed. The young stud spun 360 degrees and did 2.5 front flips. The move left Pete completely stunned. The key thing was he even landed steadily.
Come back here!
The young stud ran circles around Pete. Pete's stamina was clearly not what it used to be. Luckily, George intercepted him on the road.
Get in the car.
When they returned to Chinatown again, the female doctor refused to take the job no matter what. She threw them a bottle of medicine and told them to get lost. Neither of them wanted to take the young stud home, so they could only stay the night at a motel. The landlady saw the situation of the three at a glance.
Love Nest, Arabian Nights, or Safari. Nest, Arabian Nights are $3 minimum. Safari I can do by the hour.
He's not a prostitute.
The young stud sat nervously on the bed. The lion mural behind him meant the night would not be peaceful. George asked where the white powder came from, but the young stud refused to answer anything. Pete angrily threw the drugs on the table. The young stud still stammered. That completely angered the two men.
LaGrange, they call him LaGrange.
LaGrange.
It turned out the young stud was just a college student with clear eyes. To earn some pocket money, he helped a classmate deliver drugs. Unexpectedly, he met the rich woman in a bar and caught her eye, which led to such an ending. The employer would contact him with an outdated pager, and the pager was in the bar where his classmate worked. Then the three immediately set off to get the pager. However, as soon as they arrived at the bar entrance, they saw the Croatian mafia boss. The two men bent down at the same time. It turned out both of them had worked for the mafia boss before. If the boss found out they knew each other, he would definitely kill them to silence them. So they sneaked into the hall separately. The young stud went to the bar to get the pager. Pete and George watched from both sides, but the bartender could not understand English, and actually poured him a drink. So the young stud climbed behind the bar and did it himself. He thought everything went smoothly, but the moment he came out he was caught by a bodyguard, and thrown out as a thief. The two men were about to leave when they saw that, but at that moment the bar atmosphere reached its peak. They were pushed into the dance floor by the crowd, and started dancing the traditional Eastern European dance. The two wanted to find a chance to escape, but the situation was completely different from what they expected. Then the mafia boss recognized them in the crowd. Then he told his men to find a chance to kill them. At that moment the two men realized the boss's intention, so they put on a show.
What's going on here, Dimitri? Who the fuck is this ass? Who the fuck are you?
Boys, it's fine. Everyone calm down. Give me those.
The mafia boss said it was a misunderstanding. To make the act convincing, the two even started fighting. In the end, the bodyguards dragged them out of the bar. Their acting fooled the mafia boss, but it did not fool the men behind him, because the guns they used were actually the same model. George quickly evacuated the scene. Pete pointed toward the direction of the car with his hand. The young stud did not run away, even though his face was bruised and swollen. He only wanted to complete the promise with his classmate, and the pager was in his hand. Then the three waited for news at a fast food restaurant. No one knew how long had passed. The pager received a message, but the two old men could not understand the meaning. Only the young stud beside them understood it. They went to a warehouse in the suburbs according to the arrangement. The young stud went inside alone to deliver the goods. George and Pete waited in the car, but just after he entered the warehouse, several black cars arrived nearby. It looked like a black deal turning into a double cross. George immediately recognized the Albanian mafia, but at that moment, it turned out the mafia boss's men came to silence them. George quickly drove the car backward, but the enemy firepower was too strong. They had not gone far before the car was stopped by a rain of bullets.
You're not wolves! You're bodies!
Seeing the enemy getting closer step by step, George decisively opened the trunk. Under the cover of the car door, the two quickly moved to the back of the car. George removed the spare tire from the trunk. Various weapons were hidden underneath. Even now the two still had no coordination. They held their weapons but did not fire back. Instead, they listened for the sound of the enemy changing magazines. The crisis on this side was completely resolved, but inside the warehouse it was another scene. It looked like a fierce firefight had happened inside. They carefully walked into the warehouse. The ground was covered with the bodies of gang members. At that moment the trunk of a white car slowly opened. It turned out the young stud had hidden inside and escaped death. George and Pete looked at each other. Their cleaner job was still not finished, so George told the young stud to finish the delivery job while he loaded a bullet into the pistol. But after spending a whole day together, they knew the young stud was not a bad person. In the end, George loosened his finger from the trigger.
It's more realistic.
Pete helped George make the decision. Their car was already destroyed. The three could only take the subway home. The young stud fell asleep from exhaustion. He did not know he almost died. At that moment both men yawned at the same time. At this moment they were not lone wolves, but brothers who fought together.
You got blood on your sweater.
George's expression turned serious. Pete also became nervous.